Hello friends, it's Jessica here and welcome back to Jessie Kate Creates. Today's video is a chatty craft with me style video. What that means is that I'm going to bring you along with me as I make a card from start to finish. That card is going to include some die cutting, Copic coloring, ink blending, die assembly, heat embossing because I absolutely love heat embossing. Just a lot of good things in this video. Now, because this is a craft with me style video, I didn't do a lot of editing to it, so it's mostly real-time crafting. That means this is a longer video. It's about an hour long, so I would encourage you to grab a project that you're working on and we can kind of craft together. So the next hour will just be like a chill, chatty, crafty session that you and I get to hang out and have together. Now this is also going to be a chatty video because I just have some things going on behind the scenes that, I don't know, I'm just really excited about and I want to share them with all of you. And you know, you guys can always comment below too and let me know the exciting things that you have going on in your life as well. So with all that being said, why don't you take a second to pause the video really quick, grab that crafty project you're working on, grab a snack and a fun little bevy, and then I will meet you back here in just a minute. And yeah, we can get into some crafting. Okay, I'll see you in just a minute. Okay, so jumping right in, the die I'm featuring on this card is the Spellbinders Pupkin die, which is absolutely adorable. I mean, look at this, folks. It is a pug in a pumpkin costume with a skull treat bag. And I think is the most adorable thing in the whole wide world. So the other thing I have here that I want to show you guys is the die assembly guide. So if you go to the Spellbinders website and you look up a die and scroll through the photos, you'll see that a lot of the dies have these guides that tell you what all the pieces are and how they're meant to be used, which is so helpful when you're putting dies together, especially intricate ones. So I have gotten into the habit of printing these off and storing them with my dies. Now, the other thing I need to show you is this little guide I made for myself. So I got this die, I cut it out, started coloring it, went to assemble it, realized I loved it and I was going to want to make multiple of this card. So I put everything back in place. I labeled all the markers I used, and that's kind of where this video is starting off. So I am mass producing this card, but on the video, you're only going to see me doing one of everything. But in reality, I think I ended up making like 4 cards. The other thing I need to say really quick is this die was gifted from Spellbinders, so thank you so much, Spellbinders. And I know the die set here that I store it on is missing the little green label that lets you know that this is a gifted product, but I was like, as soon as I saw this, I wanted to use it, so I didn't even finish doing all my normal like packaging things for storage before I started cutting it. So that's why the little green sticker is missing here. But so anyway, what you see me doing right now is taking all of the little dies for this set and arranging them on a piece of 100-pound white cardstock. You can use whatever you prefer for your alcohol marker coloring. This is what I have in my stash and what I use. Now, I did take the time to make sure all the dies were well spaced out because I'm going to be coloring them directly on this piece of cardstock, so I don't want anything too close together. Once those were arranged and taped down, now I'm just going to roll them through my die cutting machine. I use a Cuttlebug Cricut. I've had this for over a decade and she is still rolling like a champ. Although I must admit, back in April, I did buy myself a birthday present, and that was the Spellbinders Platinum machine. They had a refurbished one on the Spellbinders website, and I did not know they sold refurbished machines, but they do, and it was quite significantly cheaper than buying a new one. So if you're in the market for a die cutting machine, I would encourage you to go check at Spellbinders and see if maybe they have any refurbished ones available. And I will include a link to where those would be down in the description box below, along with links for all the products you see me using here in the video. Although I will say the refurbished machines are not always available, so you might have to check back every so often to see if they have any on the site. Now at this point, what I'm doing is I have some repositionable tape. This is Scotch repositionable tape, although you could use any low tack tape here. and I am using it to tape all of my dies in place. So this is the back side of all the dies, and before I move the paper pieces or the metal dies, I'm just taping everything in place. I like this method for a couple different reasons. One, I don't have to worry about losing any of the small, tiny little dies. And two, I think when they're taped in place, it honestly just makes it easier to color them in, especially the smaller pieces. The third reason I really like this is because sometimes I travel on the go, sometimes I meet up with friends at coffee shops, or we'll just get together on the weekends or something like that for crafting. And when everything is taped in place, it makes this project really, really easy to transport. So that's why I like doing my Copic coloring this way. Especially if I am doing multiples or mass producing a card like I am in this video. And I've made other videos on this technique, and I will go ahead and link one of those craft with me style videos up there if you want to see that as well. Okay, so you can see I just gave that a good shake. Nothing is moving. So at this point, it is time to jump right into our alcohol marker coloring. Like I said, I have this guide I made for myself off to the side, and I'm going to be starting with coloring in the costume for our little pup here. So this is supposed to be a pumpkin, so I've grabbed a couple different shades of orange. Here I have some Copic markers in Y38, YR04, and YR09. Now, I am no expert at Copic coloring, but I have been practicing it for a few years now, and that has definitely helped my coloring get better. The method that I like to use when I am blending multiple colors is to start with the lightest color, then I move on to my medium, and then my darkest color, and then I go back to my medium and my lightest color. I find that is what gets me a really nice blend. Sorry, my phone is going off in the background. But yeah, that's just the method that I find works really well for me. Something that I have been trying to do lately is get a little bit better at using some darker colors. I think when I'm blending a lot of times, I'm nervous to go too dark because I'm nervous that it's not going to blend well. But one thing that I have learned over the years from practicing myself and also just watching a lot of people online who are much better at Copic coloring than me is that it's important to lean into those dark colors because it gives you more contrast and it just makes for a more striking blend. So you're going to see here, I'm going to go through all the colors and then I'm going to go back to that darkest color to deepen it up a little bit at the edges of the card. But of course, you know, use whatever Copic coloring method works best for you or whatever medium works best for you. You know, if you like watercolors, totally go for watercolors instead here. It's just, you know, whatever floats your boat. I was just in the mood for alcohol markers on this particular day. Now, something else I want to mention now, because it is going to come up later. Here I am using Copic markers, but in a moment when we switch to some other colors, you're going to see me using a lot of random markers. And that's because when I first got into coloring with alcohol markers, I did not want to invest in Copic markers. I wasn't sure if I even liked the medium. So to me, it didn't make sense to spend the money on Copic markers because they're expensive. They're like $8 a marker. And if you need like 3 markers in one color to do one blend, really quick here, now I'm moving on to some brown markers, and these are some random ones in my stash. Just 3 or 4 shades of brown that I liked and thought worked together really well and kind of looked like a pug. And I'm using that same method, lightest, medium, dark, and then going backwards through that. So anyway, but yeah, I didn't want to invest all that money in Copic markers. So instead, I went to my local Tuesday Morning because this was a very long time ago. And I saw they had on sale a couple different packs of like super cheap Spectrum Noir markers. And these are not the Spectrum Noir markers that you can like go buy nowadays. These were, I don't know exactly what they were, but they're not available online anymore. I've checked a couple different places and I just can't find them. But they were really cheap. And I think I bought 2 different packs of 20. And I think each pack cost me around $20, which $1 a marker, not bad at all. But it let me test to see if, you know, Copic coloring or alcohol marker coloring was a medium that I would actually like and enjoy. It turns out it was. So from there, what I started doing was investing in the colors of Copic markers that I found myself using the most. So for example, I purchased a set of green markers because anytime you're coloring a floral, you need green for the leaves. I just used the greens often. So I purchased a set of greens. I purchased some pinks. I purchased some grays. I purchased some browns. And over the years, I've just slowly been adding to my collection as I notice something I'm lacking or a family that I don't have, a good blend for, things like that. Because I definitely would not have had it in my budget to go buy, 3 of every color or every color family of markers right off the bat because it is expensive. Also, nowadays, there are so many more options for markers. I know you have the Olo markers, the Copics, the Ohuhus, and I'm sure there are even more brands that I am not familiar with. So there are a lot more options out there nowadays for the types of markers you can buy. But that is why you see me using all these random markers, and why I can't always give you a good description of the markers I used. Because especially for these super basic Spectrum Noir markers, some of the colors are just latte, crisp green, pear, and I don't know what Copic or Olo or Ohuhu markers those would correspond with, which is why here I just told you I used some browns, just some nice browns that I thought might work and look like a dog. Use what you have in your stash, because maybe you have browns that are a little bit warmer or a little bit cooler, but they would still work. You don't need to go purchase the exact shades of the exact markers that I'm using. If you have something in your stash that's pretty close and that you can, make work for the project that you are working on. Something I will say about this dog, I struggled to color this in. I knew I wanted the eyes to be a little bit darker because I did look up some photos of pugs and I noticed that their ears and their eyes tend to be a little bit darker than the rest of their face. So that is what I was going for. And I was going to say something else and I forgot what I was going to say. So maybe we'll get back to that in a second. Sorry, guys. Like I said, this is what it's like to have a conversation with me in real life. I often get lost and sidetracked in what I'm saying. But anyway, here I'm moving on to the feet and coloring these in. And I am just using the exact same set of markers that I used to color in the pug's face. Now, something I do need to let you know about this adorable die set is I just looked it up, and at the moment it is sold out on Spellbinders website. I am so sorry, you guys. But there is another die set that's kind of similar to this. It is the same dog in a little sheet as a ghost costume, and it is also so adorable. I do not have that die, but it is in stock. And also right now, Spellbinders has a BOGO sale, buy one, get one free for selected dies. And there are a handful of dies I'm looking at purchasing because who doesn't love a sale? But I'm also thinking I might add the little pug in a ghost costume to my cart as well. It is not part of the BOGO sale, but it is adorable and I might splurge and purchase it for myself. We'll see. So if you're in the market for, dies right now, check out the Spellbinders website. If you're not, don't look. Don't tempt yourself, you guys. If it's not in your crafty budget right now, hold tight, stay strong, stick to that budget. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the dog's mouth. And for this, I am using mostly the same colors, but I am adding in I'm using the medium as my lightest tone, and I'm adding in one more darker color because when I looked up photos of pugs, usually their mouth is significantly darker than the rest of their face, and so I kind of wanted to mimic that with my dies. Oftentimes when I'm coloring something in for the first time and I'm not sure how I should color it or what colors I should use, I will look things up online. Just as a reference, just kind of as a guide for myself to know what I want to do. And of course, when it comes to crafting, your coloring doesn't have to be realistic. If I wanted to make a blue pug, I could make a blue pug. But for this, I did want it to look kind of more like your average pug. So I did go ahead and color it how I noticed they look in a lot of the photos that I saw online. But of course, do whatever you want to do in your crafting that brings you joy. Okay, so once I finish up the pug, I'm going to move on to coloring in the skull. The background is just going to be straight like a dark gray black situation because it's going to be covered by the skull and you're not going to see it. For the actual skull itself, I'm going to use some grays from my stash, and then I'm going to move on to coloring in the stem and the little like leafy part that goes around the dog's neck with some different greens. And I do think I show them on the screen what it is that I'm using, so you will be able to see it. Okay, so now let's get into some of the exciting things I have going on that are making me nervous, but also really excited. So some of you might know that we have hit the Burr months, September, October, November, December, and that means it is craft fair season. And y'all know I love selling my cards at craft fairs. It is always so nice to be able to, meet with other people who enjoy arts, who enjoy crafts, who just, enjoy handmade items. And also I get to meet a lot of fellow paper crafters as well. It's always so nice when you guys stop by my booth. I love being able to see you and talk to you guys. So very excited for craft fair season. And I have not signed up for a ton of shows, but I have signed up for 3 or 4 shows that they're really big ones. And it takes a lot of, work in advance to have enough cards made for me to feel like I have enough to do all of these shows. So the first one I have coming up is the Hermitage Handmade Festival, which is at the Hermitage Museum here in Norfolk, Virginia. And I absolutely love this festival. The very first time I signed up for it, it got canceled because of COVID. It was during the Panini. But I think 2 years later, I signed up for it again and I got accepted. And it was the first time I ever did it in person. And it was such a fabulous experience. To this day, it remains the best craft show I have ever done in terms of how many cards I sold and how much money I made. Plus, it was such a wonderful day. It is such a well-run craft show, which is something I always really appreciate. Like, it's well organized, it's well run, it's easy to know, what you're supposed to be doing as a vendor, what's expected of you. I just really love that show. And when I did it the first time, when I tell you it was nonstop all day, it was nonstop. I think I only had one moment where I was able to sit down. I think I sat down for like 2 minutes and then I was back up and talking to people because there were just people coming in and out of my booth all day. And it's just so great because I think that is one of the shows I do where it's like, okay, this is my target audience, which is so important. When you're selling your art, not everyone is going to like what you make. That's just the fact of the world. Even if what you make is amazing, there are people who aren't going to enjoy it. It's just not their style. It's not what they're into. And that's okay. Because there are also people who are going to fucking love what you make. And they are going to be super fans of what you make. And those are your people. That's your target audience. Those are the people you need to find and worry about. Don't worry about the people who don't like your stuff. Those aren't your people. Go find the ones who do like what you have to offer. And I feel like the Hermitage is one of those events where it's like, oh yes, these are my people. This is where my target audience likes to shop. So it's just all around wins, tens across the board. But I remember the first time, and really so far the only time I did that show, afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, I am wiped out of product. Like, I feel like I don't have nearly as many cards, which is a good and a bad thing. We'll get back to that in a second. Really quick, what I'm doing here, I've colored in all of the pieces, parts now, and it's time to assemble them. And I noticed here when I lifted it up that I needed to attach the dog's nose to the rest of his mouth. So I went ahead and placed a piece of tape behind the nose, and then I'll be able to just pop that nose right in place like a little sticker. And that way I keep it and don't lose it. When I was doing this, I realized it would also probably be a good idea for me to do that with the eyes as well, because those are completely cut out and I didn't want to lose them. So I'm going to tape those in place. Now, you could just put a piece of black cardstock behind the eyes, to avoid having to keep up with those tiny pieces. But eventually I will use a black glaze pen on the eyes and the nose, so I definitely didn't want to lose those. Now I'm pulling out all the other pieces of the pug so I can get everything ready to assemble it. And I will say that when I was doing this the first time around, once I had all these pieces kind of lined up, because that's something I always do with dies, before I glue anything into place, I put everything where it's supposed to go to make sure I like the way it looks. I don't need to make any adjustments. I didn't miss anything before I start gluing things down. And that's where I was the first time when I was like, oh my God, this pug is adorable. I need to make a million more of it. So you're going to see me doing that in a second here. But back to the Hermitage. So it was such a great show and I did so well at it, but I did sell more than I expected to. So I was a little bit worried because I still had another show or two that season, and I was nervous if I had enough cards. So I had to go into like extreme make mode because I still wanted to have a good variety of cards for everyone who came to my subsequent festivals. So it was kind of really stressful at that point in time. I will say I also had a lot of other stuff going on in my life, but it was just really stressful trying to make the quality of cards I make fast enough to have some for the show. So this time around, I am trying to get ahead of that, and I've been trying to, since July, just kind of up how much I'm making, and when I do make a card I like, make sure that I make multiples of it so that I have enough cards on hand for everything else I have coming up. Because I will be doing the Hermitage Handmade Festival. I will also be doing the Newport News Halloween Festival, which is a 2-day event. And then I also have the Newport News German Market, which is another 2-day event. And I want to make sure I have lots of cards for all of those events. In addition to that, I've also signed up to go into 2 local boutiques. Oh my God, so exciting. I am going to talk about that more later on in the video. But all that basically to say, I have a lot of cards that I need to make to be on track. And honestly, I'm a little bit nervous that I may have bitten off more than I can chew. And this happens to me. I'm an Aries, and sometimes I'm a little overly ambitious. But I don't know, maybe I can pull it off, and maybe it's going to be wonderful and amazing. So I'm still really excited for all of it, even though I am a little bit nervous. Okay, back to the pug. At this point, I decided I wanted to pop up his little nose onto some foam tape. So I am pulling out some 1mm thin foam tape from scrapbook.com. I started using this a few months ago, and I am really, really loving it because it allows me to add more dimension to my cards without necessarily adding more bulk, because I can have more thin layers before a card gets to the point where it might not be mailable. So here I'm just showing you the thin foam tape on top and the thicker foam tape. It's probably like, I don't know, 1.5, maybe 2 millimeters. So it's really nice to have both of these in my stash so that I can kind of control how thick the layers are and how much something is popped up. But I am using the thin foam tape here for the pug's nose. So back to the Hermitage. Like I mentioned, the last time I did it, it was a really, really busy day and it wiped me out of cards. So what I'm focusing on right now is doing as much as possible to be prepared for all of these upcoming shows and also to eliminate stress in the places I can. And one thing that I'm doing to help me out, of course, is, making a lot of cards. So I kind of set some goals for myself each week of what cards I want to make and how many cards I want to make to help keep me on track. So I'll be prepared. Another thing that I'm doing is asking for help where possible. So I'm very lucky that I have a wonderfully supportive community of family and friends around me. So the first time I did the Hermitage, it was such a busy day and it was really hard to do that by myself. So I reached out to my mom and I asked her if she'd be willing to come and help me at the Hermitage this year. And she so graciously and kindly said yes. So that's really exciting to know that she's going to be there and I'm not going to have to do that day completely on my own. And my mom is so good at vending. So pretty much my whole life, she has gone to different types of vending events and shows. And a lot of what I know about vending, I learned from her and from, going to her shows and helping her with shows when I was younger. And when I was in high school and I'd have to go help her with the show, I don't know, maybe I was a little bit bratty about it because I probably wanted to be hanging out with my friends. And instead, I was at a convention center or a trade show with my mom. And I'm so grateful to have had all of those experiences now because they are so helpful to me when I am vending. So I don't know, it feels really full circle that now instead of like her having events that I have to go help her with, like I have shows and events and she's willing to come help me at them. So that's really exciting. And I am so thankful that she's going to be there and help me. I have also been so grateful for, I have a sister who lives in town and I've been so grateful for all of her help as well. She a lot of times will help me with like packaging up my cards. I'll usually wait till I have, I've made quite a few cards and then just pack them all up at once. And so she'll occasionally help me with that. Or like, oh my gosh, you guys, the last craft show that I did, I basically got rained out. So I set up to do the show, and about an hour in, it started raining. So, I put up the sidewalls on my tent and I realized there's still water on my cards. What's going on? And I realize my tent has leaks, which, oh man, it was so frustrating because it had already been like it had just been a day on that day. So to also realize that my tent was leaking was really rough. Really quick here, what I'm doing. The treat pail that the dog is holding in its mouth has a really thin handle, and I wanted that handle to be a little bit more sturdy. So I cut that die out of some cardstock again so that I can layer them up and make that handle that's going to be in the dog's mouth a little bit more sturdy. I'm also taking the same marker I used to color the pail and using it to color the edges so that the white edges of the cardstock don't show. You don't have to take that step. It's just something I like to do on my dies so that you don't see that little white edge peek through. I am a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my card, so I don't mind taking the extra time to do this. But if that doesn't bother you, you can totally skip it. It's one of those things that I doubt most people would notice. But so that's what I'm doing there. But so yes, my tent had a leak and my cards are made of paper. And while I do put them in their little plastic sleeves to protect them, at the end of the day, they're still plastic and water can get into them if they're, left near water for a prolonged period of time. And so at that show, I had to pack up and leave early, which I've mentioned before. I really hate to do that. But my cards were getting wet and I was just like, oh no, like I gotta protect my cards. So I did pack up and end up leaving early. I think most of the vendors actually ended up packing up and leaving early because it was raining quite heavily. And then when I got home the next day, I basically had to go through all of my cards to see, if they were still okay. And most of the cards were okay. I think I had one card that I kind of had to cut it apart and do quite a bit of card surgery to save it because the card itself did get wet. A lot of the cards were saved by their envelopes. So like I had some envelopes that I had to toss because they clearly got water damage, but they kept the card safe. A lot of the inserts that I put into my cards that tell you, what's on the inside of the card, a lot of those I had to replace, which I will take. I don't mind replacing the envelopes and the packaging inserts if it means that the cards are safe. But like I said, it was very rainy and my tent was leaking and, water was on those cards for a little bit of time. And then when they were in the bins, when I was going back home, the water was just sitting on them. I've also kind of switched how I put the cards in the packaging to a way that I think will prevent water from being able to get in as well. But so that was a lot of work to go through all of my cards and all of my card sets and whatnot. And my sister helped me with that. And I'm so grateful that she was willing to help me with that because it was a lot to go through all of those cards and to replace everything. So it was very nice to have her help with that. It's also been really nice to have the support of my friends. Like I have a group of friends that we meet up a couple times a week, and they understand that in this season, I will probably be missing a lot of our hangouts so that I can prioritize getting ready for these shows. I still see them like once a week, but not as often, not as many of the hangouts, because they understand I've got to focus on kind of this adventure I'm going on right now with my card making. So I really appreciate their support there. But yeah, so I need a new tent. So that's another thing that's on my to-do list right now is I've been researching different companies for tents because I want a good quality tent. The one I had that had the leak was an old tent from my mom. That tent was probably, I don't know, at least 10 or 15 years old. So it's great that it lasted as long as it has. And I'm hoping the next tent I purchase will last just as long. So I do want something kind of high quality. I also, in my head, have some ideas for how I want my booth to look and some of the add-ons I'd like to get for my tent. Because like a lot of shows I do go late into the evening, and especially in the winter, some of the shows, by the time we're starting and the market is beginning, the sun has already begun to set. So I want a good lighting system for my tent as well. I don't know. When you walk into my booth, I really want it to feel like you're walking into a cute little boutique. And so I'm trying to set my tent up in a way that will look like that. So I've just been doing a lot of research. If you have recommendations for a high quality tent, pop-up canopy tent that you love, please let me know down in the comments. I will take, any advice or direction. If you have a tent that you really love or a lighting system or something like that you really love for your tent, I'd appreciate it. And okay, here is our adorable pug. Didn't he come out so cute? Oh my gosh, I'm just absolutely in love with this. So now that our pug is done and ready to go, it is time to move on to creating the background for our card. So to make this background, I'm going to be doing some ink blending. And this is an A2 card. I don't know if I've mentioned that already. So I have a panel of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to attach it here to a waffle flower grip mat. Now this is a new purchase for me. These came out a long time ago and I put off getting myself one because I was like, I don't need a grip mat. Like I've been ink blending without one for years. I don't need a grip mat. But recently I decided I wanted one. So I purchased this, and at this point when I was filming this video, I think this is only like the second time that I had used it. And oh my gosh, you guys, I am in love with it. This is one of those craft supplies that I didn't realize how much I needed it until now I have it. It just makes life so much easier. Do you need it? No. Would I recommend it to you if you craft regularly? Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you do a lot of ink blending, or I've used this when I'm adding shading to small little die cuts. I've also used it to hold my dies in place, especially if I'm mass producing, so that I know where everything is before I assemble it. I've just really, really been enjoying this. And here I am using it to hold my paper for my ink blending. But since filming this video, I have started putting this mat inside of my Misty, and now it just kind of lives in my Misty. And honestly, I'm considering getting a second one down the road for outside of my Misty. But yeah, I've just really, really been enjoying this mat more than I thought I would. Okay, so now that, I'm done singing the praises of the grip mat, what I am doing here is blending on some Distress Oxide inks. I wanted this to have like a fall Halloween-y type feel to it, so I chose Villainous Potion, Carved Pumpkin, and Candied Apple as the colors I wanted to use. I don't use the Distress Oxides as often as I should, which is one of the reasons I pulled them out for this video. I was like, yeah, let me use these because I don't use these enough. So I also don't have a ton of experience blending the Distress Oxides, and something that is very different to using the Oxides over using regular dye inks is the way they blend. On the one hand, it's easier to get them to blend with each other. They're just so smooth and creamy, but they overlap differently. It's almost like because they're oxides and they're a little bit more pigmented and a little bit like they cover the other colors more than a regular dye ink would. So you'll see here, I kind of struggle to get a good blend between all the colors, especially between Candied Apple and Villainous Potion, because when I blend that purple into that red, they create their own third color kind of completely, which I was not expecting. So it took me a little bit of time to get that blend to look how I wanted. Now the blend between Carved Pumpkin and Candied Apple, beautiful. Those two are so easy to blend. They go right into each other. They're gorgeous. And something I pretty much always do when I'm ink blending, regardless of whether I'm using these oxides or just regular dye inks, is I will put down all of the colors and then I will go back over all of the colors 2 or 3 times just to get a really good, really smooth blend. And so it worked out really well between the red and the orange here, but between the Villainous Potion and the Candied Apple, it did take a little bit more work to get it to look exactly how I wanted it to. But you know what? That's okay. I really enjoy ink blending. It is one of those techniques where I can completely zone out while I am doing it. So often my blends take me a little bit of a long time. What an oxymoron. Often my blends take me a long time, but I'm okay with that because I really enjoy ink blending. So I don't mind if it takes a long time for me to get the blend I want on my cards. But yes, that is what I'm doing here. Okay, so now let's talk about the other thing that's really exciting that's going on that I've already kind of mentioned is I'm going into 2 boutiques. That is so exciting and a little bit unexpected. But I'm going to tell you the story of how it happened. So there is a local handmade boutique called the Lazy Daisy. They have a couple different stores in Virginia, and they have one store in Yorktown, which is very close to me. And I've gone there before. Like I go there to shop sometimes. I purchase items from that store. It is so cute. It's such an adorable little boutique. And a few years ago, I was like, oh, it would be so cool to sell my cards in here one day. But I always kind of was like, oh, I'm not ready for that. I don't know if my cards are good enough for that. Just a lot of limiting beliefs that I had placed on myself that made me feel like I wasn't ready for that and it wasn't something that I could do. But I'd been curious about it for a couple of years. So one day I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw they had a post saying that they were holding an open house for vendors. It was a week from when I saw the post, and I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll go to that just to see what they have to say, just to see how, being in a boutique would work. I was just really curious. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go to that for informational purposes. Okay. And on the flyer, it did say to bring samples of the product that you create. So it was one of those things where I put it on my calendar and I kind of thought like, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. We'll see what happens. So fast forward a week. It's Sunday night and I decided I want to go for a walk at the park. So I put on a cute little outfit. I go to the park. I'm at the park for maybe 2 minutes, right? I'm kind of on the trail when I get a notification on my phone that I have a meeting. And I'm like, what meeting do I have on a Sunday night? Like, what is going on? And I realize it's for this open house. So now I have to make the choice. Like, am I actually going to go and get this information from the open house? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I think I should do that. So really quick, back to what's going on here. With the card. So at this point, it's when I'm realizing this blend is not, I'm having difficulty with this blend. So I'm thinking maybe I should switch to a different color. I pull out Seedless Preserves. I pull out a new little dauber to go with it, one of these round little blending foams. And you will see I ink the very tiniest corner of this card and realize, nope, I don't like that. I'm going to stick with the purple I already have and just keep working at the blend to get it to look how I want it to, because this was just not the right color for this card. But this happens sometimes. We try things, they don't work out. We keep moving. It's just part of crafting, is trial and error and figuring out what works and what doesn't. So I go back and now I'm really committed to making this Villainous Potion and Candied Apple blend together the way I want them to. Now, once I do get these colors to blend and I'm happy with the way the background works, I decided I wanted to add some splatter to it because it doesn't look bad, but I'm still not in love with the blend. And I think whenever a blend isn't perfect, the best way to kind of camouflage that fact is to add splatter to it. So here I have a bottle of water and perfect pearls. It is how I make my own sparkle spray, although there are a lot of different brands now that have different, sparkle sprays that you can use. But I'm just going to use the nozzle to get the droplets on here. Usually I would use a paintbrush for this, but on this day I was feeling lazy and I didn't want to pull out a paintbrush and have to clean a paintbrush, so I just used the nozzle. I will also at some points use the nozzle to strategically place drops exactly where I want them. Also, sorry for the change in lighting. I work in front of a window and I think like a cloud went over the sun or something like that. So anyway, while I splatter here, let's get back to me. So I'm at the park. I decide I do want to go to this open house, and I know I'm going to have to be late because I have to go home. I have to change clothes, grab a couple of my cards, and then drive over to the boutique. And this is all at 6 o'clock, and the open house starts at 6:30. So, but I decide I want to know. I'm curious enough that I want to know. In the past, I've been curious about going into boutiques, and I've gotten information from a couple of them. And some of the terms that they had I didn't like. Like, there's one boutique I was curious about, and between the booth fee every month and the commission, it seemed like an unreasonable fee. Another place I went, they had like I don't even know what you call it, like a distance exclusivity or location exclusivity, that if I was in that boutique, I could not sell my cards anywhere within like 40 miles, which was absolutely ridiculous to me. And I was like, oh no, that's not going to work because I do so many craft fairs. But those were all quite some years ago. So I was like, okay, well, let me see how this boutique works. I go to the open house. The lady in charge, I believe her name was Heather, was very kind, very friendly, offered a lot of really great information. And I think honestly was a little hesitant to let me in at first because they already had another card vendor in their boutique. And I think it's one of those where they will have multiples of something, but only to a certain point. Like, not if what you create is exactly the same. Back to the card really quick. So here I've splattered my background. I've also allowed it to dry. And now I am running it through with an embossing folder. This is the Spellbinders Falling Leaves embossing folder. It's just a regular 2D folder, but it puts these really, really pretty fall leaves onto your background. And I just absolutely love the way this looks. So once I have this on, I believe the next thing I'm going to do is trim down my panel, because I decided do I trim down this panel? Actually, no. I think I'm just going to go right into testing out the layout and the sentiment for this card. It took me a minute to figure out the sentiment I wanted for this card. At first, I thought I was going to use some pre-cut sentiments I already had from this Spellbinders Space Greetings die set, but I decided, ultimately, you'll see me pull out and try a couple different things. Ultimately, I decided to stamp and emboss a happy birthday sentiment from I think it's called the Adventure Typewriter Sentiments stamp set. I don't know. I'll have it linked down below. But okay, watch me test out a bunch of different things. I decided to keep this in because this is realistic to how I craft. And I think sometimes in these videos, it's easy to think that, when you see a YouTuber make a card, that they make the whole card in 20 minutes when really it takes them an hour and a half. So with this, I did cut out a lot of stuff, but I tried to keep in all of the really important parts. I tried to keep in, all of the coloring, all of the ink blending. There are times where I was just staring at the card for 5 minutes, and I cut that out because nothing was happening on screen, but I did keep most of the stuff in this video. Okay, so anyway, I go in there with my cards. She was a little hesitant to let me in at first because they do already have a card maker, but they have multiple, apparel vendors, multiple jewelry vendors. So I think she was okay with my cards because they were different enough from the cards that the other vendor in the store sells. And she did let me know that we'd be spaced out, all this different stuff. But she seemed really excited about my cards. She was really sweet. She was willing to work with me. And also the fees to be in there were so much more reasonable than some of the other places that I had gone to and I had spoken with. So she gave me the application. She let me ask, all the questions that I had. Everything seemed above board. I went home, read through the contract and the application. And then I went back in and, signed up. So I went in I think it was 2 days later, I went back with my application and all the paperwork she needed from me to sign up. And while I was there, she let me know that they also have a store in Virginia Beach. Now, really quick here, I'm just going to heat emboss my sentiment. So I have a piece of black cardstock that I've treated with some baby powder, which is basically just cornstarch. I'm going to stamp this sentiment with some white ink, and then I am going to emboss it with some Hero Arts detail white embossing powder, and then I will use some dies to cut it out. So when I went in to drop off my application, she let me know they have another store in Virginia Beach. And she was like, oh, I was really hoping you were going to, come back in for a booth. And I'm really excited you're here because I have some good news for you. And I'm thinking like, what good news can she have for me? Like we spoke briefly one time, like I'm a little bit confused. And she tells me our card vendor in Virginia Beach just let me know that she's going to have to leave the store. So we need a card vendor in there, and I think you'd be great for it. And I'm like, what? This is insane. She also lets me know, because Virginia Beach is like 40 minutes away from 40 minutes to an hour away from where I live. Also, you have to cross a bridge tunnel. It's a whole thing. There's always accidents, there's always traffic. So I tend to avoid crossing the bridge and going over there unless I have to. So in my head, I'm kind of like, ooh, like, do I want to do all that to sell my cards in a boutique in Virginia Beach? I don't know. And these are all things I'm thinking in my head. I'm not saying this externally to her. But one of the things she also lets me know is that I don't have to take my cards to Virginia Beach. She explains the card display they have there, and she lets me know I could bring her the cards and they would transport them and set them up in Virginia Beach. And I'm like, oh, well, I like the sound of that. That sounds like a wonderful plan. So she gives me another application to apply for their Virginia Beach boutique. And I fill it out there on the spot. We talk, we work things out. And so, yeah, super exciting. I'm going to be going into the Lazy Daisy Yorktown and the Lazy Daisy Virginia Beach at different times. I forget the exact dates. I think I will start having a spot in Yorktown mid-September, and in Virginia Beach, it'll be in mid-October. So yeah, that's all really exciting. And I don't know, I'm very proud of myself for letting go of some of the limiting beliefs that I think have kept me from dreaming bigger for a really long time. And I would encourage you, if you have something you're interested in or passionate about, and maybe your own limiting beliefs are stopping you, I'd encourage you to see what happens if you just try saying yes a little bit more, or you just try, thinking about like, what would you say to a friend if a friend wanted to do this? Would you tell them to think small, or would you tell them to go big? And that's what you should probably tell yourself. I find that really helpful sometimes. So yeah, that is so exciting. Also, again, a little bit nerve-wracking because this is what my schedule is looking like right now. I have mid-September, so around like September 14th, 15th, something like that. I have to stock a display in the Lazy Daisy. And then September 20th, I have the Hermitage Handmade Festival. And then October 4th and 5th, I have the Newport News Halloween Festival. And then October 15th-ish, I go into the Lazy Daisy Virginia Beach. And then I don't think I have another show until the beginning of December, when I do the German Christmas market, which is great because I will probably need all of that time to make more cards, but it's also very daunting. Like I said, I am a little bit overly ambitious sometimes, but I have faith in myself and my abilities to do this and to do it well. So I'm just putting that out there to the universe. I'm manifesting this, and I'm hoping the universe reflects that back to me. I'm also putting good vibes out there for you all as well. It's so exciting to me when you guys comment on my videos and you let me know like, oh, I signed up for my first craft show, or I got this really big craft show in town that I'm excited about. Like, it's so exciting to see that. And please know that I am always hoping for the best for you. I am always, like, oh, I hope she does so well. I hope everyone loves her cards. Like, I just think there's so much space at the table for all of us, and I want all of us to do well, and I want all of us to be able to, share the joy of our cards with other people and to find other people who, are appreciative of the work that we do. And I just think, I don't know, I'm really passionate about card making, and I do think it is such a wonderful way to connect with other people and to connect with our communities, which is especially important right now. I think connection, in light of everything that is happening in the United States and around the world, is so very important. And I think card making is, as silly as it might sound to some people, one of those avenues where I feel like I'm able to help people experience connection and joy. And I will take that. I will take any joy and connection that I can, especially if it's through my creativity and my art. Okay, back to the card here. So now that I have all of the pieces made, it is time to assemble everything. So I'm putting some dry adhesive on the back of my panel, but I will also end up putting some glue. Do I need this much adhesive? Probably not. But do I do it anyway for all of my cards? Yes, I do. Mainly just because habits die hard. I used to kind of just use dry adhesive, but Virginia is very humid, especially in the summer. And I noticed at markets, sometimes that dry adhesive would lift out, like it would be so hot that it would almost like reactivate the dry adhesive, and the tape would kind of start to lift up. So I started using liquid adhesive as well to keep everything down in place. And I probably could just use the liquid adhesive, but like I said, old habits die hard. What you see me doing here, I got some of that tape on the edge. So I'm just using my finger to kind of wrap it around so that there won't be any, sticky spots on the front of the card. And then I will glue this down to the card base, and I am going to pop up both my sentiment and my little pug on, I believe I used the thin foam tape for that as well, so that these cards would be easy to mail. Okay, so while I work on that, one other thing I wanted to mention about the Lazy Daisy is that their shop in Yorktown has a small space available where you can hold classes, which that's not something I currently do. I've never done I've never hosted a card making or led a card making class before. But I will say at almost every craft show I do, I run into a fellow paper crafter who asks me if I teach classes. And I never have. But it is something that I find intriguing. I also have some friends and family members and vendor friends who've for years been like, oh, you should teach classes. And I think it would be really fun, but it's also kind of intimidating. And people seem to be surprised when I say that because they're like, you make YouTube videos, you film tutorials of you making cards. So like, what's the difference? But to me, when I make my videos, I have a lot more control. Like if I say something incorrectly or I forget to say something, like I can always go back and edit the video. I can refilm something. But live in person, you can't do that. And maybe I'm stressing out a little bit too much over that, but it is what intimidates me about in-person classes. However, I'm also kind of intrigued by that idea. I think it could be really fun. And at the Lazy Daisy, the space available for classes is pretty tiny. It's essentially like a really large table. And I don't think for card making, I'm not sure you'd be able to fit more than like 4 to 6 people. So it would have to be small groups, which would probably be less stressful to me. So who knows, maybe at some point down the road, I'll do in-person classes. I don't know, maybe I won't. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's just nice to know. It's another reason why I thought the Lazy Daisy was a good fit for me, because there's that potential down the road if that is something that I decide I would be interested in doing. Okay, so back to the card. I'm just getting all of the foam tape on here. I'm cutting up a bunch of tiny little bits here. Do I need to do that? I don't know. Probably not, you guys. When it comes to adhesives, as we've already seen, I tend to go overboard, but that's just my style. But just know you don't have to put all 10 million of these tiny little pieces on the back of your card. So I know I've done a lot of talking in this video, and I really hope that you guys will share with me in the comments maybe any updates that you have going on. Like, what are you guys working on? If you are crafting with me in this video, let me know about the project you're working on in the comments, or if you are, I don't know, cleaning while you watch this video. I do that a lot. I will put on a YouTube video while I'm like washing dishes or folding laundry, or sometimes while I'm crafting too. So let me know if you're hanging out with me today, what it is that you're doing. And also any updates or exciting things that you have going on in your life. I'd love to hear about it as well, so that this conversation can be maybe just a little bit less one-sided. So at this point, what I'm doing for my card is I'm about to mount my dog and my sentiment to the card. And a lot of times I will just eyeball things, and I feel like the more you eyeball, the better you get at it. But for whatever reason, on this day, I was not trusting my eyeballing abilities, and I really wanted to make sure these were pretty straight on the card, because this is a relatively clean and simple card. And if it is not, if things aren't centered up, you're probably going to notice it because there's not anywhere for things to hide. So I have lined up my card on my glass board, and I've taped it down with 2 pieces of repositionable Scotch tape. I've also pulled out my T-squared ruler, and I'm going to use this to help me make sure that my sentiment is straight and that it's not, like at an angle. So I am eyeballing things from side to side, and I'm using the ruler to make sure the sentiment is straight on the card. I also put a little bit of glue on the back of that foam tape so that I would be able to wiggle the sentiment around. Here you see me using my finger as a unit of measurement to try and make sure that the sentiment is even. What I really need is to pick up one of those centering rulers where it's like there's the 0 in the middle and then the numbers go out from there, so you can get things even and aligned better. And I know a lot of different companies make those. I'm pretty sure Tim Holtz has one. I know there's a Wendy Vecchi one. Pear Blossom Press actually has one that I'm really intrigued by, because in addition to being a centering ruler, it also has notches so you can like mat layers on your card. So that's one that I've really been kind of eyeing lately. And eventually I would like to add it to my stash, but that's down the road. So anyway, here I am adding these pieces to the card, and y'all, we're about to experience a little bit of heartbreak here together. I am going to mess up this card. So what happens is you're about to see me peel off the piece of tape that is holding my card to my board. And where I messed up was in how I peeled off the tape. So ideally, when you're peeling tape off a card, you should peel the tape away from the edge of the card. So I should have picked up one of the edges of tape that's on the card and peeled it back towards the glass mat. I did the opposite. I picked up a corner of tape that was on the mat and I pulled it towards the card. And as you can see, it causes that rip right there. Now, in real time, I'm pretty sure I ushered an expletive or 2, but then I was like, okay, maybe I can just glue this right back on, right? So I grab the glue, I attempt to try that, but you can see I'm missing the little corner of the card. So then my thinking is, okay, the glue is still wet, so I can probably lift everything off. As you can see, I was very easily able to lift the pug off, but I had already really pressed down that sentiment in place and it had already had some time to dry. So I am taking my craft pick and I am using it to kind of like wiggle under the foam tape to lift this up without ruining the background. Because in my head, the background is still usable. I could maybe cut down this piece, like cut a 1/4 inch off all the way around and use that for something else, or just cover up where the glue marks are. So I don't want to destroy the whole panel. Here, I'm peeling off the little bits of the card that came up with the sentiment so that you're not going to see it, because I'm definitely reusing this pug and this dog. So I set that to the side, and remember, I was mass producing these cards, so for everything I did, I made like 3 at a time. So I have another background made and ready to go. So I take a second to like breathe and calm myself down because I was really frustrated. And then I pulled out another panel, and I'm just repeating all the steps you've already seen, you guys. So I'm fast forwarding through this part, but it was part of the crafting process for this card, so it is still represented in the video. So now once I have fixed my mistake, we have the front of our card done and completed, no tears in sight. I'm really happy with how this is looking. And you can see I have this background, and I decide I'm going to put this to good use. I still need to decorate the inside of the card, and because I did not cut this panel down, I don't have any leftover background to use on the inside. A lot of times if I create my own background, I create it from a larger piece of cardstock, and when I cut it down, I use the leftover on the inside of the card. I didn't do that here, but I do have this background right here that I'm not using, so I decide this I will use for the inside of my card. So I'm going ahead and cutting off a piece that I think is roughly like, I don't know, somewhere between 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch, and I am going to use that on the inside of the card for a little bit of decor. I don't know what I'm doing here, you guys. I don't know why oh, actually, I think I'm taking an equal amount off the top and the bottom so that if I want to use this as a mat on a card, I can. There we go. So that's still usable, though we're not using it for this particular project. And now I have a little leftover strip that I will use on the inside. I don't know what I'm doing with that, but this bigger strip is what I'm going to use on the inside of my card. So as you guys know, I put mats inside all of my cards, even when I'm using a white card base. And more than anything, that's because once you add a bunch of layers to the front of the card gets really heavy and the back isn't, because it's just the one layer of cardstock. And I don't know why, but something about the sensory feeling of holding a card like that kind of bothers me. So that's the reason why I always mat my cards, even when I'm using a white card base like I am here. So I took a panel of cardstock and I cut it down to be 4 1/4 by like 4 3/4, I think, because I don't want to layer this inside decoration on top of the matting panel, because remember, we cut this from a card base, so it already has a layer of 100-pound cardstock behind the design, and I didn't want the inside to get too thick. There, I realized I needed to cut a little bit more off of my mat, so I'm going to cut that down, and then I'm just going to mat everything on the inside of the card and glue everything in place, and that is going to complete our card. Oh, just kidding. I still need to trim off more. You could avoid this, friends, by measuring, but clearly on this day, that was not something that I felt like doing. You'll see that theme in my card making a lot. Just kind of go with the flow. Are there easier way to do some things than what I did in this video? Yes. Did I do them that way? No. Because sometimes you're just feeling lazy in the craft room, or you just want to do it a particular way. I don't know, whatever it is. So that's what's going on here. But once I get these down, that's going to finish this card. And once again, I am absolutely in love with how this card turned out. I think the Pupkin die is super adorable. And I think he fits perfectly on that kind of fall evening background. So I'm just really happy with this card. This card I will be taking along with me to my upcoming craft shows. So if you see this card and you're like, oh, I need that card in my life, come out to the Hermitage on September 20th, and you might be able to snag this card. So there we go. There it is, completed. So happy with how this turned out. I think it is the perfect card as a little introduction to the fall season. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me throughout this video. I know it was a long one. I know it was a chatty one, but I hope you really enjoyed it as much as I did. Oh, I'm also showing you here. I made the same card, but changed out the sentiment just to show that you could use whatever sentiment you wanted on a card. It doesn't have to be a happy birthday card. So the other one could be like a Halloween card or something like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please, please, please do me a huge favor and like this video. That is so helpful with the YouTube algorithm. It helps other people to find my channel and join our crafty community here. And if you like this video and you want to see all the other videos that I put out, and you want to see that Hermitage vlog that I make, because I promise I'm going to make it, holding myself accountable, then be sure that you subscribe to the channel, friend, and even ring that notification bell so that you get notified when I post all of my videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!